In the latest crackdown towards women in Afghanistan, the Taliban have banned female students from private and public universities in the country. According to a letter by the Higher Education Minister, the Taliban have announced the closure of universities for women. The latest diktat further restricts women's access to formal education. The Taliban have already banned girls from middle school and high school as well. The women have been restricted from most employment as well. They have also been ordered to wear head-to-toe clothing in public. And just last month itself, women were also banned from parks and gyms. When the Taliban 2.0 came to power, they vowed to respect women's rights. But in the past few months, they have widely implemented their strict interpretation of the Islamic law. Meanwhile, condemning the move, the United Nations has called it another broken promise from the Taliban. And echoing similar concerns, the UN Special Envoy for Afghanistan said that the closure of high schools had undermined the Taliban administration's relations with the international community at the moment.
What it is, it's clearly another broken promise from the Taliban. We have seen since their takeover, and also in the past months, just a lessening of the space for women. Not only in education, but access to public areas, their non-participation in the public debate. It's another very troubling move.
The condemnation was swift from the United States as well. The U.S. State Department said it will see what it can do to hold the Taliban accountable, especially after its latest diktat. Listen in.
This unacceptable stance will have significant consequences for the Taliban and will further alienate the Taliban from the international community and deny them the legitimacy they desire. I do fully expect that we will continue to pull from the tools that we have at our disposal to hold the Taliban to account. Some senior members of the Taliban are already subject to certain measures.
The university ban comes weeks after Afghan girls took their high school graduation exams. Thousands of girls had also sat for the university entrance exams across Afghanistan, with many aspiring to choose teaching and medicine as their careers. And for more on this, we're now being joined by Nadia Hashimi from Maryland. She's a member of Afghan American Foundation and also a member of the U.S. Afghan Women's Council. Welcome to the broadcast, Nadia.
Thanks for having me.
Right now, this is not the first time that the Taliban have ordered such a diktat against women in Afghanistan. They have deprived women of livelihoods and identity. What lies ahead for the women of Afghanistan?
What's clear is that to see ahead and predict what's going to happen next to the women of Afghanistan, we can just look to the past. And, the writer Maya Angelou has said, when someone shows you who they are, believe them the first time. People who are of Afghanistan, who have been following Afghanistan's history closely, are very well aware of the Taliban of 1996 to 2001. And that is exactly what we've been expecting to see. And that's what we have been seeing play out happening in the restrictions that they're issuing very hard on these women and girls.
Right. Now, the Taliban had earlier promised that they would allow girls to go to schools, but now they're banned from schools and universities. Is the Taliban leadership in any way divided over the treatment of women?
The chatter is that there is some division among the leadership of the Taliban. And of course, we know that some members of the Taliban leadership are actually sending their own daughters to school abroad. And so their beliefs, their actual fundamental personal beliefs on whether or not girls should go to school may differ. But what is happening, the outcome of this is that strategically, as a whole, they have issued these diktats, as you mentioned. And what's happening is that the girls and the women are suffering. So really what's being played out is that the women and girls of Afghanistan and their rights, their liberties, their essential human rights are being used as leverage. And, what they're going to play with the international community remains to be seen. But you hear people saying, well, this is going to have consequences on the Taliban. The more they take away from women and girls, the more leverage they have, because they are little breadcrumbs that they could potentially throw back if they decide to.
Right, just to add to what you said, like just last month itself, women were also banned from parks and gyms. I want to ask you that, is there any hope for improvement in the future?
Again, I look at history, and as much as I want to be an optimist, as much as I want to believe that the will of the people and the resistance inherent within the Afghan women and girls and their family members, their communities, is going to help rise above what they're enduring right now, I don't know if that's true. When I look at history, the only thing that provided some relief for the women of Afghanistan and that helped liberate them was an international intervention, a very severe international intervention that was spurred by a dramatic event and a violent event. I hope that it doesn't come to that again, but looking externally at the situation, I don't see a path forward without a dramatic shift of power in the country.
Right. My last question to you, Nadia. The United States has said that it will hold Taliban more accountable. What do you make of this statement?
I really don't know what to make of it. Again, as much as I want to be an optimist, it has been the failure of the U.S. policy that has led to the Taliban being in control. And at this point now, there are very limited options in terms of how they engage. What remains to be seen is if they are able to get creative in implementing some kind of policies that pull the Taliban back towards the center. But I don't think the United States can do it alone. There are other countries, neighboring countries, and other nations that have had strong relationships and continue to cultivate strong relationships in terms of trade and financial support with the Taliban. So this really has to be an all-hands-on-deck approach.
Right. Thank you, Nadia, for joining us in WION this hour and sharing your insights on this. Thanks very much.